Have you ever wondered why Switzerland, a tiny alpine nation, is a neutral country? Well, it's not alone. There are others like Ireland, Austria, and Costa Rica, who all embrace a similar non-interventionist stance. Yet there's something special about Switzerland. It's the oldest and most respected neutral nation in the world. It's a status that's been hard-earned and carefully maintained. But how did this come to be? What's the story behind this? In the realm of global affairs, neutrality is a policy of not taking sides, especially in conflicts or disputes. It's a stand of non-aggression and non-intervention, often backed by a commitment to peace and diplomacy. For centuries, Switzerland has held steadfast to this principle, earning a unique place in world politics. In this video, we're going to explore the history of Swiss neutrality, tracing its roots and understanding its significance. So, let's dive into the fascinating history of Switzerland's neutrality. To understand Switzerland's neutrality, we must travel back to the beginnings of this small yet significant nation. In the heart of Europe, in the 13th century, a confederation of cantons or states gave birth to what we now know as Switzerland. These early Swiss states, nestled amongst the majestic Alps, were fiercely independent. Yet they often found themselves embroiled in the wars and conflicts of their more powerful neighbors. The Swiss proved to be skilled warriors, and their mercenaries were sought after across Europe. But the cost was high, and the Swiss grew weary of constant warfare. The seeds of Swiss neutrality were sown during this turbulent period. Straddling the cultural and religious divide between Catholic and Protestant Europe, Switzerland was often caught in the middle of religious wars that swept through the continent in the 16th century. With the country torn between Catholic and Protestant cantons, the Swiss faced a dilemma. Would they plunge into the religious wars that were tearing Europe apart, or would they seek a different path? In the Peace of Kappel in 1529, the Swiss cantons agreed to a treaty of mutual peace and respect. This treaty allowed the cantons to follow their chosen religious path without interference from their neighbors. This was a groundbreaking moment in European history. For the first time, a nation had chosen neutrality, peace, and coexistence over war and religious strife. The Peace of Kappel was not an official declaration of neutrality, but it laid the groundwork for the Swiss tradition of neutrality that would develop in the centuries to come. It showed that Switzerland was willing to take a different path, to stand apart from the conflicts of Europe, and to prioritize peace and coexistence over warfare and destruction. And so, the Swiss, renowned for their warriors, began to gain a new reputation. They became known as peacemakers and mediators, a role they would continue to play in European politics for centuries to come. So, Switzerland's initial taste of neutrality started in the 16th century. This taste would only grow stronger over time, defining the identity of this small but significant nation. As we move into the 19th century, we find Switzerland caught in the whirlwind of the Napoleonic Wars. The French Revolution had sent shockwaves across Europe, and in 1798, the French army, under the command of Napoleon Bonaparte, invaded Switzerland. The once independent Swiss cantons were transformed into a French satellite, known as the Helvetic Republic. For the next 17 years, Switzerland lived under French influence, its fate intertwined with the fortunes of Napoleon's empire. This was a period of profound transformation for Switzerland. The French introduced a centralized government, replacing the loosely connected cantons, and implemented a constitution that granted equal rights to all Swiss citizens. Despite the turmoil and the loss of independence, these changes modernized Switzerland and laid the groundwork for the nation we know today. However, the Swiss neutrality we're familiar with didn't officially begin until after Napoleon's defeat. In 1815, European powers gathered at the Congress of Vienna to redraw the map of Europe. Switzerland's unique position was recognized and respected. The Swiss Confederation was restored, and the European powers agreed to recognize and guarantee Swiss neutrality. Now, why did they do this? Well, the European powers had their reasons. Nestled in the heart of Europe, Switzerland was strategically positioned. Ensuring its neutrality meant preventing it from becoming a battleground or a base of operations for any one power, thereby maintaining a delicate balance in the region. It's important to note that Swiss neutrality was not just imposed from the outside. The Swiss themselves embraced this status. They saw it as a way to preserve their independence and avoid being dragged into the conflicts of their neighbors. And so, they committed themselves to a policy of armed neutrality, ready to defend their soil if needed, but refraining from participating in any foreign wars. Thus, The Congress of Vienna in 1815 marked the official beginning of Switzerland's journey as a neutral nation. This was more than just a political decision. It was a commitment to a way of life, a declaration of intent to live in peace amidst a continent often torn by conflict. Fast forward to the 20th century when the world was engulfed in two devastating world wars. Amid the chaos and destruction, there existed a tiny island of calm, a sanctuary nestled in the heart of Europe, Switzerland. Despite being surrounded by warring nations, this alpine country managed to maintain its neutrality throughout both world wars, a feat that's as impressive as it is perplexing. Let's delve into the First World War. As alliances shifted and global powers clashed, Switzerland found itself encircled by the Central Powers and the Allies. Yet, it managed to walk a diplomatic tightrope, serving as a hub for international communication while refusing to take sides. This was no easy task, especially as each side tried to sway Switzerland's allegiance. However, the Swiss held firm, their neutrality acting as a buffer for the war's destructive forces. The Second World War presented a fresh set of challenges. With the rise of Nazi Germany, Switzerland's position became perilous. Hitler's forces loomed large on its borders, and the threat of invasion was palpable. Yet again, the Swiss walked the line of neutrality. They bolstered their military defenses, prepared for a potential invasion, but never engaged in offensive action. But this period was not without controversy. Switzerland's decision to trade with Nazi Germany, its refusal to allow more Jewish refugees, and its post-war handling of Nazi assets have all been subjects of intense scrutiny. Critics argue that these actions compromised Swiss neutrality and were at odds with humanitarian principles. However, in the face of these criticisms, it's important to remember the precarious position Switzerland was in. Surrounded by a Europe at war, maintaining neutrality was a Herculean task. It required a delicate balance of diplomacy, military preparedness, and economic pragmatism. Despite all odds, Switzerland managed to maintain its neutrality even in the face of such global conflict. It was a beacon of calm amidst a storm, a testament to the power of diplomatic resolve and the enduring value of neutrality. This unique strategy helped Switzerland to navigate two of the most violent periods in human history, preserving its sovereignty and independence against all odds. In the post-war era, Switzerland's neutrality has taken on new dimensions. The Swiss have maintained their non-alignment, even amidst the heated politics of the Cold War, and into the 21st century. This neutrality is not just about staying out of conflicts, it's also about providing a neutral ground where global issues can be addressed. Switzerland has become a home for international organizations, embodying its neutrality in a very tangible way. The city of Geneva, for instance, hosts the headquarters of the Red Cross, a humanitarian organization whose principles of neutrality echo those of the Swiss state. Geneva also serves as the European base for the United Nations, hosting numerous agencies such as the World Health Organization and the Human Rights Council. These organizations benefit from Switzerland's neutrality, as it allows them to operate without the shadow of political bias. But neutrality in the modern era brings its own challenges. In a world increasingly interconnected by technology and global trade, Switzerland's non-alignment often means walking a tightrope. The country has to balance its commitment to peace with the practicalities of global economics and politics. For example, while Switzerland is not part of the European Union, it has numerous agreements with the EU, and is deeply integrated into the European single market. Moreover, Swiss neutrality has faced criticism for its banking secrecy laws, which have historically allowed for the accumulation of wealth from questionable sources. This has led to a significant shift in Swiss banking practices, with the country working towards greater transparency to align with global standards. Yet, despite these challenges, Switzerland's neutrality has largely been a source of stability and prosperity. It's a stance that has allowed the country to maintain its sovereignty, foster international dialogue, and act as a mediator in global conflicts. Today, Switzerland's neutrality continues to serve as a beacon of stability in a tumultuous world. So, why is Switzerland a neutral country? To answer this question, we've journeyed from the early days of the Swiss Confederation through the tumultuous Napoleonic era and the World Wars, to the present day. Switzerland's neutrality was born out of a complex blend of historical events, geographical realities, and strategic decisions. In the fraught landscape of Europe, where nations rose and fell, Switzerland carved out a space for itself by choosing a different path. Its neutrality allowed it to navigate the turbulent waters of international politics without being swept up in the tide of warfare. In the modern world, this neutrality has evolved into more than just a survival strategy. It's become a cornerstone of Swiss identity, a badge of honor that sets the nation apart. It enables Switzerland to play a unique role as a mediator, a safe haven, a keeper of secrets. Switzerland's neutrality, a policy born out of historical necessity, has become a cornerstone of the nation's identity and a unique force in global politics.